Welcome to The Cauldron, a podcast hosted by Ed Bolden-Greer, the creator of Ravens Vail. In each episode, Ed will have free-flowing conversations about horror, life, culture, and personal growth. Expect to hear from storytellers, authors, horror experts, life gurus, thought leaders, and influencers. The Cauldron is a place where concoctions of a lot of ideas are brewed down to potions that are sometimes important and useful, sometimes eccentric and bizarre, but always just what you need. The Cauldron podcast may contain explicit language and thematic elements not suitable for all audiences. Listener discretion is advised.
Welcome to the Ravens Vail Cauldron Podcast Halloween Special. For the next 4 days leading up to Halloween, we're diving into the eerie and unknown with ghastly tales, haunted histories, and creepy folklore. We're celebrating Halloween in true Ravens Vail style, and trust me, we've got a cauldron bubbling over with frights and delights just for you. I'm your host, Ed Bolden-Greer, and joining me is my ever-terrified yet always insightful co-host, Jacob Garner, a.k.a. Frady Cat.
Hello, everyone. Greetings, dear ghouls and specters. Join us for today's episode as we dive into some chilling ghost stories. So grab your most bewitching brew, dim the lights, and prepare to be spellbound by the allure of Halloween. Let the haunting begin.
Hey, Jacob. How you doing, man?
Dude, I think I'm doing pretty good. It's a little odd being here at this time.
I know. I think this is the first time we've recorded in the evening.
I'm pretty sure it is because we typically record in the morning. Well, we recorded that one episode real fast.
Really fucking early.
I still appreciate the coffee that you brewed for me, so that's nice. We're routine-oriented here.
Very routine-oriented.
Yeah, but this is like, when you think about it, it's kind of like a dry run for our special After Dark episode that we've got coming up. What was that, Saturday, November the 16th?
Yep, 7 p.m. until whenever we get sleepy.
Yeah, I know. That's going to be, dude, I'm so excited for that. So, like, listeners, prepare for a free live and unfiltered, even more unfiltered session where Ed and I will be actually having a couple of guests stop by.
Several guests.
Which is going to be fun. We're going to have them all over here at the G-Spot for some drinks and just a whole lot of tomfoolery.
Yep.
And we'll actually be posting the link on our website and all of our social media platforms as well. So you guys can tag along too.
Yeah, make sure you come out and spend some time with us on Saturday, November 16th, starting at 7 p.m.
Yeah.
Jacob, you were recently part of the Ravens Vail paranormal investigation, and you did pretty good. Do you think your phasmophobia is abating, or do you just think you have a little more tolerance?
I think it's a lot like, I guess, you just get more thicker skin with it, right?
Mm-hmm.
I know for a fact that if I had to do that investigation by myself, it would have been way shorter because I would have probably tapped out, been like, you know what, fuck this, I'm out, whatever. But I mean, having you guys there really made me feel like safer, I guess, which was really cool. And I'm really excited to do another one, to be honest with you. I've definitely noticed ever since I've been in your life that I'm less scared. I'm more informed about it, which makes me less phasmophobic. Does that make sense?
So what you're saying is that because of my bravery, you feel more protected.
I'm leeching off of it.
Yeah,
yes.
okay.
And if a ghost ever did appear, I would just hop behind you. Be like,
that's fine. I can take care of it.
Yeah.
So today, family, we've got some ghost stories kind of from our own personal lives. I'm going to start. And the first story that I want to tell is a story that comes from San Antonio, where Jared did some growing up when he was younger. And we recently went down there. Actually, it was last year.
Mm-hmm.
About this time, we went down there and got to already knew about this story, but got to go where it happened, or where it supposedly happened. Okay. So as the story goes, there is this train track, okay, a railroad track, and there's a little bit of hill going up, to get to the train track. Not a big one, just a little hill.
Yeah.
And then there's a hill going down on the other side. And so one evening after school, the bus was taking students home, and it went up the little hill, and it stalled out on the railroad tracks.
Oh, Jesus.
Okay? And the train came through and just obliterated the train.
Oh, my God.
Every kid was killed. Just a disaster, right? And the story goes that on very special nights, when someone gets stuck on the tracks, you will see all of the kids come and help push the car off the tracks.
Whoa.
And if it's a particularly foggy night, you can see the handprints the next morning where they've dried on the car.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. So we went and we got to see the railroad tracks where that supposedly happened. There's obviously two different sides to this story. Mm-hmm. The first side is that it never really happened. It's just an urban legend. Yeah. The other side is that it wasn't really a school bus. It was a church bus coming back from some type of church event, and it happened later in the evening. Okay. So whichever side of that story you want to be on, I will tell you that being there was freaky.
Really?
Like,
what time of day did you go?
We went in the afternoon. It's probably about 3:00 in the afternoon.
Yeah.
And it still was creepy. Like,
really?
Yeah, there's a tree beside the railroad tracks at the crossing, and people have put all kinds of flowers and memorials and stuff. So I don't have a doubt that something happened there.
Yeah.
Right? And there's like school mementos and things from the school the students were supposed to be from. And I think it did happen, right? There's also stories that it wasn't just a bus or a van, but multiple cars over the lifetime of this intersection have been hit by trains there. And there's evidence, records to show that that's true. One was a husband and wife who decided they were going to get out of the car, but just got out of the car too late. And the wife got smacked by the train.
Oh, my gosh.
And the guy got killed by the car being pushed over on him.
Yeah.
So it felt really eerie. And quite honestly, I would say there's something supernatural there. Why didn't you,
do you guys ever plan on going back to San Antonio and kind of going out night or whatever?
I don't know that as okay as I am with all of that, I don't know that I would feel comfortable going back at night without a team. Yeah. Just having some teammates or something there.
I've heard a very similar story here in Tennessee where it was a very almost pretty much the exact same thing, except it was a minivan full of kids, got stalled out on a train track. Train came by, boom, blew to smithereens, killed everybody. And the way that I heard that urban legend going is that if you put flour or baby powder on your bumper and then drive over it, stop on the tracks, and then just put it into neutral,
it'll push you over.
It'll push you over.
Thing.
And then you can get out of the car and you could see the fingerprints from
I've heard that too.
I'd be willing to try something like that, but then at the same time, our listeners, we don't want you guys playing around train tracks.
Yep. We do not advise that y'all do this.
And I would like to do it too, but knowing my luck, I would just turn into a ghost, something horrible would happen, then I'd be like, oh shit, now I got to push cars for the rest of my life.
Now I got to be here at this train track instead of at the gym hunting people.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey there, family. It's Krista Newby, the voice of Sybil. We wanted to tell you about a very special company called Memory Alchemist. Memory Alchemist is an enchanting company that creates unique small batch hand-poured candles, wax melts, and room sprays. Say goodbye to candles that cause allergies or fill your space with unwanted pollutants. Memory Alchemist candles are crafted with the utmost care using high-end coconut and apricot wax blends and the cleanest fragrance oils. Breathe in the captivating scents without worrying about respiratory issues. But we're not just talking about fragrance. Memory Alchemist candles are adorned with exquisite graphics that perfectly match each scent, telling a unique story. It's a delightful blend of sight, scent, and imagination. Light up your world with Memory Alchemist. Discover the art of scent and storytelling. The scent of imagination. You can visit the Memory Alchemist website at www.memoryalchemist.com and tell them Ravens Vail sent you.
I got some ghost stories.
Okay.
All right. So this one actually happened, 2024. So this happened, like 4 years ago, I would say. I almost, let me back up. I got off working a very late shift at Starbucks, and I was like pretty tired or whatever. I don't really know whose fault it was, but I almost got into a head-on wreck on a 2-lane road, right?
My.
And we just barely avoided each other, right? I mean, it happened so quickly, we couldn't even hit the horn. It just barely avoided each other. And I freak out, and I'm looking in the rearview mirror to look back at the car, and I shit you not, Ed, I see the Grim Reaper in my rearview mirror.
Mm-hmm.
And he pulls his robe open and exposes his body. And I'm looking at the mirror, and as I'm driving down the road, it occurred to me, death just flashed before my eyes.
I hate you. You're an asshole. Alrighty.
Anyway, I do actually have a real ghost story.
Okay.
If you want to hear it.
Yeah.
I just had to tell that. Sorry. This actually comes from my family. When we originally came up with this list a couple of weeks ago, right, of what we wanted to talk about, I personally don't have any ghost stories that I've like witnessed myself, but my family had a couple. I'll tell one just really quick, but then I'll get on to a bigger one. My mom claims that after my dad passed away, that she used to see him in the house, like either sitting at the kitchen table or, sitting out on the front porch smoking a cigarette. She claims that it wasn't until she had finally, came to a place of peace about letting him go, and that, hey, the kids are going to be okay, I'm going to be okay, that she didn't see him anymore. But she still claims occasionally, out of the corner of her eye, she'll see dad in the house. And
Probably does.
That's something that my family, they always talk about spirits of loved ones kind of hanging around us, right? I've talked about it in previous episodes, but my Aunt Miriam actually had a really interesting story about her time when she was like 9 years old back in the 60s in the Philippines, okay? So the Philippines, they're these kind of like large public transit type of buses. They're called jeepneys. And I encourage anybody to kind of look them up. It's jeepney. It's spelled like Jeep and then N-E-Y, right? And when the Americans occupied the Philippines during and after World War II, they left a majority of their heavy machinery and equipment just there for the Philippine people to use. I guess it would have costed too much to ship it all the way back to America, or maybe it was outdated, one of the two. So the ever resourceful residents ended up converting them into public transit buses, right? And they trick them out. They got wild designs. They got all these bells and ribbons and insane paint jobs with like 1 million mirrors. They're really rolling around in style out there. But either way, the Philippines experiences monsoons quite often, right? It's like hurricanes, but way wetter and on steroids for the most part. And my aunt said that they were in a village jeepney driving through the mountains, right? And the roads and infrastructure in the Philippines, especially in the 60s, were not up to like standards like you would imagine today. I mean, even in some parts of the Philippines today, their roads barely have been touched since like the 80s. They're really, really rough. That being said, the bridges also are not well maintained by the government out there. In fact, local municipalities usually have to fix their own infrastructure. It's not like we have a Department of Transportation here in the United States. It's basically like, did the village elders raise enough money to repair a bridge to get over a river? So anyway, my family is traveling in this jeepney, They're going from one village to another village. As this monsoon was getting ready to blow through, they needed to get to like a shelter, like concrete buildings, not the sort of like corrugated metal and bamboo type of housing that they lived in. Otherwise, it would just blown it down like a bunch of matchsticks. So my aunt told me that the rain was beating so badly that they could barely see more than probably 10 feet in front of them. There are no street lights like there are here in America, so the only light was coming from the headlights of this jeepney. And as they're driving, they're getting ready to cross over a bridge, but as they get closer to it, the bus driver and a lot of the people, the passengers on the jeepney, claim that they all saw a man standing in the middle of the road dressed in all white. He was wearing linen shirt with linen pants, and he was barefoot, which was interesting too. Another weird detail is that my aunt claims that he looked bone dry. And he wasn't waving his hands or jumping or running. He was just standing in the middle of the road with his hands behind his back. So the jeepney driver immediately slams on his brakes, trying to avoid hitting him. And when it stops, they're all looking around for the guy, and they can't find him anywhere. The bus driver even got out to look for him, thinking that he needed to get into the jeepney, but they couldn't find him anywhere. They looked underneath, they looked on either side of the road, they looked up and down the road, never saw the guy, right? So they all went, well, that was weird, and they were all kind of asking, did you see that too? I saw it, that was a little odd. So they start up down their road again, and then about less than a couple 100 feet from where they were stopped, they pull up to the bridge. And because it's a large vehicle, it takes a while for it to get up to speed. They noticed that the bridge had been completely washed out.
Wow.
That it was destroyed, and this was a very large river due to the amount of rain that was going through. And make no mistake about it, with the visibility being as low as it was, there was absolutely no way at the speed that they were originally traveling at, that even if the jeepney driver slammed on his brakes and pulled the emergency brake and whatnot, they would have easily hydroplaned into that river and died. So my Aunt Miriam and my family, they all kind of believe that, I think that if they weren't so religious, they would have said it was a ghost, but they also believe that it was an angel that had stopped them, that clearly that spirit knew that the bridge was out, wanted to prevent a tragedy, and just stood in the middle of the road to stop them.
I've heard of things like that.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, and I'm telling you, Ed, I swear to you, the same way that my aunts and family tell that story, they are so straight shooting about it that it'd be no different than me sitting here saying you're wearing a flannel right now. They legitimately believe that was an angel that saved them. And they have a couple of different stories like that. There's a lot of different kind of like family stories where they talk about spirits in the woods and then the rivers in the Philippines, where there was a story that my Uncle David tells where he was playing in some water that was kind of like near this like kind of bamboo rainforest type of situation. And a tree had fallen and basically was going to fall onto him. So he dove underneath the water to avoid getting crushed. But way the limbs and everything, he was getting like all tangled up in it. He didn't know which way to get out, and he was running out of air. And he swears that it felt like somebody grabbed him by the back of his neck and pulled him out of the water.
Oh, wow.
Through the tree limbs and the foliage and everything like that. And then he said it wasn't like a current pushing him to the bank. It felt like somebody was legitimately grabbing and pulling him like by a rope around his waist to get back to land. And he said this is how unnatural it was. It didn't pull him face first towards the bank. The bank, like he felt his back hit it first, right? And when they looked around, there was nobody around. The other kids, they weren't watching him, but they were scared. They were looking in the water for him. And he's just on the bank, and he starts calling out to them, guys, I'm okay, I'm okay. Here's where it gets even crazier. It pulled whatever the spirit or whatever it was, it pulled him against the current. He didn't float down current and then end up on the bank. He ended up higher than where he was at.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So my family, they're firm believers, man. They've got ghost story after ghost story after ghost story about stuff like that. Again, they think it was an angel.
Angels. Yeah, I can see that. Well, I have one, and this one's far more personal. It is about a paranormal investigation that I was on.
Mm-hmm.
This is years ago, and it was actually an overnight stay in the home.
Ew.
Okay. So we were spending the night in the home, and I will say this: we were asked by a group of people to come do it because this home had been turned into a memorial, not a business, but like a museum,
Kind of like a historical old house.
Yeah. And so we were given permission, and we had kind of free reign of the house. And we were obviously not going to sleep there because we were doing an investigation, but we did have some comfy chairs to sit in and things like that while we were doing it. And when we first got there, which was around 8 o'clock to set up, we were just doing our normal thing. And one of the things that, the job I have when I go on these investigations is to walk around and to see if I feel, hear, or see anything. I don't do any of the tech side of them. And so I was walking around while everybody else was setting everything up, and I kept being drawn down to the basement, and it was not necessarily a place that I would want to go or go willingly, if you understand what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
But I wound up walking down to the basement. And as far as basements go, it was probably a nicer basement for an old house. It was concrete floors and concrete walls. And you could tell that had been done at some time, probably not part of the original house.
Yeah.
Right. And I kept feeling when I was there that something dark had happened in that basement. So after a little while, I just wasn't picking up enough, right? So I decided to go upstairs, and in my mind, I was going to go back down, take a chair, because there was nothing down there. There was some boxes. It was just empty. I was going to take a chair so I could sit down there and see if I could have conversation with whoever or whatever was down there.
Yeah.
So I walked back up to the command center where we have that set up, and I get something to drink. And by this time, I've walked around the whole house, and I know the layout, and it's time to get mic'd up and everything. And so they're putting my microphone on, and we have GoPros. And so I had this stupid hat I had to wear. I will say GoPros were not common then. So the team had some money behind them.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the first time I'd encountered a GoPro. So I was like, just bopping my head to make the camera move and stuff. And so we were going to start on the top floor, and we were going to work our way down. It was 2.5 stories. So there was like an attic, which was like the top, and then there was a second floor and a first floor. That's why I said 2.5, with a basement.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So we went upstairs to the attic, and as with most attics, it was just hot.
Yeah.
Right.
Stuffy.
There was not a lot of light. We didn't turn lights on. We had some flashlights, and not the big powerful ones I have now, but some decent flashlights, wide angle flashlights. And I walked in, and they always let me go in first. Good or not, I'm not sure if that's the best idea. But I walk in, and it's cold. And I know I just said it was hot because the temperature of the room was hot. Like it was humid and it was stuffy. But as I walked closer to the middle of the room, it got cooler. And I looked obviously around for air conditioning vents and things like that. There was obviously no air conditioning up there, but I always try to explain away things. And I couldn't figure out why I was getting cold. Nobody else felt that. Like I was like, it's cold right here. And everybody else is like, are you crazy? And sometimes I am, because as you know, I'm very cold natured. So we didn't really sense anything up there. We stayed up there for about 10 minutes, kind of going over everything. It wasn't a huge attic. It was built out, like there were floors and walls and everything, but there was just some old furniture up there. So we looked around, didn't sense that much, just that cold spot. And then we went down to the second floor, and the things kind of got a little crazy down there. On the second floor, there were 3 bedrooms. Okay. There was like a master bedroom, which is a little bigger, and it had what I'm going to guess was like a nursery off of it, smaller little room to the side of it. The house had been built when there wasn't indoor plumbing, and so there had been a bathroom added in the middle of the hall, which I guess they took off part of that, like the nursery, because the nursery was like a big walk-in closet, but there weren't closets in this house, so I'm assuming it was a nursery. And so walked into the master bedroom first, and didn't really pick anything up, like dead zone. Walked into the bathroom, nothing really. Walked into the back of the house corner bedroom, and it was nothing. Walked into the front of the house bedroom, which overlooked like the parking lot or the front of the house.
Yeah.
And at first I thought, it's dead in here too. But then all of a sudden, it was like the world kind of went dark. It got really cold, and I knew the sun was going down outside, but this was like a weird going dark.
Yeah.
Right. And I kept hearing heavy breathing.
Ew.
And I had 2 people with me. One was kind of a camera guy, right? And I said to them, could you all slow your breathing down a little bit? And they're like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, looked around and it wasn't them, right? So I heard this breathing. It was like,
Jesus.
and kind of, a little wheeze, but not like a scary breathing, just like breathing.
Yeah.
Right? Like, just like, and it was very audible. And I thought, I didn't have earphone or headsets on or anything. I just had a mic on, and I thought, it feels weird in here now, but my mind's playing a trick on me. There has to be an explanation for this, because although I'm a believer, I'm also a skeptic.
Yeah,
and I think most of the hauntings that we investigate in the world are just weird feeling places.
Yeah.
Right? So we stayed there for a while. Nothing else happened. I would periodically, though, hear that breathing. Okay. And so we finished with the second floor. We went down to the first floor. And on the first floor, we're looking around. There's a kitchen. There's a formal dining room. There's a living room. But there's another little room. And it looked more like an office or a parlor or I don't know, some kind of more formal room, right? And there was a dining table or a table in there, and the guy who was there, when I asked what the room was for, because there was obviously a formal living room, I thought maybe this had been like the private dining room or room. He said it was where the seances happened.
Oh, really?
And I was like, oh, well, they didn't tell me that.
God.
Right?
You would think that'd be like the first thing that they're like, by the way, guys, heads up.
No, they never mentioned it. And so I spent quite a bit of time in the kitchen because it was just really a nice feeling in that room.
A nice feeling?
Yeah, it was a really nice, cozy kind of feeling. It wasn't a small kitchen by any means. So cozy was the feeling, not the actual space itself. And there was an eat-in table in that kitchen. And then I went over to the actual dining room, which was off of the kitchen. Okay. And there wasn't much there. And I'm just getting like this has been a bust.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah, I felt a couple things and I heard that, but I didn't really, like I was talking myself out of it.
Yeah.
And then I went into the seance room and I got an overwhelming sense that I was wasting my time and I needed to go to the basement again. So I grabbed a chair, a folding chair that we had brought, and I took it down there, down to the basement. And I had only one other person with me, okay, because we were going to do this in the dark. So we took our flashlights, and another sensitive person, a medium, went with me. And we were down there with chairs and flashlights, and we turned off the flashlights, okay? And I let my eyes adjust. And there was a little bit of light coming from like a window on the other side of the room, right? But there wasn't very much down there. There were some boxes and stuff, but pretty wide open space. And I heard the breathing again, that, right? And so the person that was with me this time was not the person who had been, or either of the people who'd been with me on the second floor.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, so this is really happening. The breathing's really happening. And I kept feeling the bad thing. And I don't mean like an evil thing. I mean, like when I'm in situations like that, I can feel that there's something bad has happened here.
Yeah.
Right?
It's like a pit in your stomach type situation.
Yeah. And it was just like these little flashes of images. And it was like an older man, not ancient, but maybe in his 70s, laying in the floor
of the basement.
And the image that came through was that, and it was him that was breathing really hard, right? And this is what I'm going to say. The guy who was the curator for the home found out information later and validated what I'm about to say. But the original owner of the house, when the home had a dirt floor, had died down there from a heart attack.
Oh, fuck.
Or what they assumed back in that day was a heart attack. And he laid down there for days.
Oh my God.
And so I kept not physically seeing that, but I kept picking up that emotion and that feeling and that kind of I am dying alone, sensation. And I had a lot of experiences with encounters when I was doing paranormal investigations, but that was probably the realest, the most personal one. And I walked away from that really affected by it.
Yeah.
Like I think it was not the last investigation I did. Obviously we did one, but professional investigation I did. I think it was the second to the last one. And when I went to do the next one, my heart wasn't in it. And so I stopped for a while doing them. But yeah, that to me, that was kind of the ghost story of a lifetime, if that will. Like I don't anticipate having that kind of experience again.
Well, to me,
putting myself in there.
To me, that's definitely even more unsettling than just seeing like a ghost move through the room.
Yeah, it was quite unsettling. So before we finish this episode, I want to thank you for participating in the Ravens Vail paranormal investigation.
Yeah,
you did.
Shout out to the listeners for making me do it. Appreciate that.
So, Jacob, are you ready for your Would You Rather question?
Of course.
Would you rather live in a world where everyone is constantly happy or a world where everyone is constantly curious?
Constantly happy, constantly curious. I like the idea. Well, I feel like we live in a world right now where everybody's constantly curious.
Do we?
Innovations and, dude, the UFO community is exploding. I know you laugh at me with my obsession with aliens, but like, man, the UFO community has grown in leaps and bounds. I think the average person is more curious about things like extraterrestrial life and other visitors. So I'm going to go with constantly happy.
Okay. I went, when I read this question the first time, I went curious. Because I think if more people were curious about things where they actually did the research instead of just reading something on Facebook, I think that we could solve a lot more health problems and a lot more world problems.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
All right. I got one for you.
Okay.
Would you rather always have to eat food that is too spicy or food that is too bland?
Not a question. Too spicy.
You'd rather eat.
I love spicy food. If it's too spicy, if I was forced to eat bland food for the rest of my life, I'd probably die. Nothing. I don't like bland food. I was raised a country boy, and it's got to have some seasonings in it.
Butter, everything else.
Stick of butter.
God, Ed, are you ready for your second dad joke?
Yeah, I guess
Snuck
I am.
that bonus one in there for
me. You're a tricky fella.
All right, here you go. How do ghosts wash their hair?
I know this one.
With shampoo.
I knew that one.
And that concludes our third episode of our Ravens Vail Cauldron Halloween special. We trust you enjoyed today's glimpse into the enchanted world of Halloween. With the veil between worlds at its thinnest this time of year, stay vigilant. Phantoms could be just around the corner. A huge thanks to all of our listeners. May your nights overflow with more treats than tricks, and may the thrill of Halloween stay with you. Until tomorrow, stay spooky, stay safe, and keep the Halloween spirit alive in your hearts.
Now, family, you adults have a few chores to do. Go on over to ravensvail.com and see about doing your chores on social media. Follow us on all the social media platforms that we've made available just for you folks. Like, listen, subscribe, and follow wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you don't mind, leave us a good rating and a kind comment. We love to hear from you. You can find the Ravens Vail Cauldron Podcast on your favorite podcast platform. Just search for the Ravens Vail Cauldron Podcast and make sure you hit the follow button to stay up to date with our latest episodes.
And family, don't forget to tell your friends about us, won't you?
So until tomorrow, family, happy Halloween.
The Ravens Vail Cauldron is a production of Small Raven Media. Today's episode was hosted by Ed Bolden-Greer with co-host Jacob Garner. Audio engineering and sound design by Nick Devan at Nicky D Sound. Copyrighted 2024, Small Raven Media. All rights reserved.